Welcome to Let's Talk Brock.
Welcome to this episode of the Let's Talk Brock podcast. Today I'm joined by Brock alumni Tyrell and Teagan Lisson, both of whom have graduated from our film studies program in 2017. Tyrell is currently a creative director at Big Red Oak, and Teagan is a project manager and content specialist at Innovate by Day, both of which are media companies located in Toronto. They are here today to share their experiences at one of Brock's University's most unique programs. So, Tyrell and Teagan, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
Awesome. Let's jump right into it. What exactly is film studies at a university look like? Because I think it is one of those programs which everybody knows exists, but it's kind of an enigma where nobody knows exactly what's happening in there. So I'd love to get to know from you two, what does film studies look like? What are the classes like? What kind of content do you learn? And yeah, I'll give the floor to you both.
Sure. Yeah, no, film studies is an interesting program, especially at Brock. It was interesting because it's very interdisciplinary with some of the other programs offered, like Marcom or just communications, pop culture, etc. So you can really kind of get a wide range of courses there. Film, it kind of changes over the years, right? First year is pretty general, introduction to film studies. It's an elective too, so a lot of folks in other degree programs take it. But as you get more into film through second and third and fourth year, it gets more specialized. And by specialized, I mean like you have programs like non-narrative experimental documentary. It's very hyper specific, or something like American film studies, which kind of spans, American film from the beginning until the modern day. So the course load is diverse. It ranges and it changes as well, depending on who the professors are and some of their areas of study. But it's a tight-knit program, or at least when we were there, it was. By the time you get into your second and third year, the class size is looking a lot smaller, which is really good, especially because it's seminar-based, a lot of it as well. Those are our quote-unquote labs. So we, watch the film and often do seminars to discuss it, and supporting texts that we read alongside the media that we're watching to kind of help us write papers. It's very film studies focused, meaning, it's a lot of criticism, it's a lot of writing about film, it's a lot about understanding what critics have said, applying different lenses, either psychological, sometimes, scientific lenses, various different kind of areas of study come into film, just because, remember, it's only 100 plus years old. It's a very new medium, a new art form. So it's a very young thing to have academics in. So it's a diverse program, especially at Brock.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So it is more theory based than the actual kind of production aspect of it.
Yeah, 100%. Like I think took one course that was more focused on film production, but other than that, it was very much theory focused. It's not like, here's how you'd set up your camera. It's more about the history of cinema and it as an art form.
That's okay. But that still sounds really cool, though. It kind of provides a different lens to how we view films rather than just kind of sitting with popcorn and munching on it. That's pretty cool. When did you both decide that film studies was the path that you wanted to pursue? At what point? What was going in your head at the time? Yeah.
Teagan?
Yeah, I had applied for a bunch of different programs, mostly for music therapy, but then at the last minute, literally, I think it was like midnight the day the applications were due, I applied for film at the very last minute because I thought that I liked film. So I kind of did it as a backup, thinking, well, worst case scenario, at least I know I like movies. So, and then I was accepted first into that program. And then as soon as I got that acceptance, I realized, like, no, actually, this is what really sparks joy for me and interests me. And so I was like, I don't even care if I got into any of these other programs. I want to go for film. So it was kind of just a last minute decision based on the fact that I liked watching movies.
Yeah, I was a little different. I've loved movies for a long time. I was interested in how they were made. since I was like 6 years old, and I saw Phantom Menace, the Star Wars movie, when I was a little kid. I thought it was really cool, and I was always interested in film. Um, so when high school came around and we started to make, the decision of what we wanted to do, I was a fairly artistic student. I liked different mediums. I thought film would be an interesting one to study. I liked writing a lot, so I thought film criticism and film theory would be interesting to study. So, Brock offered one of the oldest film courses in Canada, and it had a storied tradition. So, and it was somewhat of a family school. A bunch of my family members have attended Brock, so it was on my list, and I thought it sounded interesting. So I applied, and I got accepted, and the rest is history there.
So cool. Yeah, I only learned about it recently that the Brock has such a storied film studies program. I didn't even know
Yeah,
that it's one of the oldest in Canada. And I guess
yeah.
you did kind of answer that question of what about Brock's program enticed you to come in. So one was the family connection, the other one was kind of applied, but it worked out, so that's good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Tegan, I actually wanted to ask you about this. I heard that you were in a bunch of film festivals within your time at Brock, so I'd love for you to explain how that was, what the experience was like, how did you get into film festivals?
Yeah, well, we both were. I think when we reached second year, we had this sort of realization that we were surrounded by people who also loved film and who were interested in trying to make short films and sort of experiment in that way.
Hmm.
And so then we were like, well, this is perfect because obviously your classes take up a lot of time, but you also have a lot of downtime even in between classes where you're kind of sitting with the same people and talking with the same people. So we were just like, let's start making short films. And there were always lots of film festivals, at least when we were there, like
Hmm.
during Halloween, there would be a horror shorts festival. And
Render This, which
yeah,
happens, and the 24-hour film festival.
yeah.
I think it came quite apparent that when you start sitting and watching movies all day and talking about them and writing about them, you have your own ideas. It's one thing to be critical and put a critical lens on and try to theorize about things, but a lot of times it's easier to understand what you're doing if you actually do it. So
Mhm.
we had ideas, and there was a few of us that wanted to get involved, and on weekends, like, can we put something together and use some of the skills that we learned, not necessarily about picking up and holding a camera, but like when we're talking about Kuleshov and the montage theory, and we're talking about why different lighting evokes different emotions and things. We wanted to try that ourselves. So we got involved with various film festivals in and around the school itself, or the Niagara region.
Mhm.
We were successful at a lot of them, which was great. It always feels good when you're successful. But ultimately, I think it helped us academically understand some of the stuff that we were talking about and researching and watching. But it was just a creative outlet, because ultimately, I think everybody has a creative bone in their body, and that comes out in a different way for everyone. And for us, we just had the opportunity to pick up our phones or whatever
Mhm.
camera we had laying around and like make our own short films.
That sounds awesome. So is I'm guessing, is there a really popular film kind of culture here within the Niagara region?
Yeah, I'd
Mhm.
say so. I think Niagara is an interesting region because you have Brock, you've got Niagara College, both have film programs. Um, it's a young community, so you have a lot of people that, are interested in making content. You're not that far from other hubs like Hamilton and Toronto, so you can, interact with those people and take your films there, or, network in that way. And it's driven by students, which is great. Young people wanting to make things. And that bleeds over because Niagara and St. Catharines has a strong music scene, has a strong history in music scene, and there's a lot of bleed there. There's a lot of overlap. So I'd say it's a very artistic community.
Yeah, even I find,
That
say, like
sounds
trying to shoot short films, we could go into any small business in St. Catharines and ask, like, can we shoot a short film in your cafe? And they'd be like, yeah, that's awesome. You can't do that in Toronto. If you ask, they would say absolutely not, or yeah, for $1,000 or something.
Yeah.
And so it feels like a small community that's very sort of like supportive of the arts, I think, in that way.
that's really good, and it's good for students as well. And I guess it helps the community as well to know that
Yeah.
their little businesses are. in any short movie. That's pretty cool. So let's move into, I guess, what you two do now professionally. Could you provide a description of your roles at your respective companies and any cool kind of things that you worked on in your term positions?
Yeah. So I'm the creative director at Big Red Oak. We're a Toronto-based creative agency. And what my role entails is, it's multifaceted, but, at the end of the day, I'm in charge of the creative integrity of the things that we make. So that's video, that's design, website. It's integrated a lot of our content. So it's, multiple pieces of content across different mediums, and video being primarily the focus because, most brands want to capitalize on video today. So my job really blends two things. It blends creativity, so pitching and coming up with ideas and going to clients and being like, you want to spend your money with us and we'll create an awesome campaign that will lead to, XYZ. And it's also inspiring and leading our creative team. We have teams of producers, editors, motion graphics artists, you name it, anybody in the creative field, copywriters, copy editors, to get the best work out of them and collectively work as a unit and create awesome things. So that's my day-to-day job.
Yeah, and I am a project manager and a content specialist for a company called Innovate by Day. And we're a creative agency and we specialize in the creative sector, mainly film and television. And so what that means is that we help movies and TV shows advertise themselves as a product. And so my role there is kind of taking over the project once it's been onboarded, coming up with what's the best strategy. A lot of times nowadays it's TikTok, and then creating the content that supports that strategy. So most recently, I've been working on a project called Mittens and Pants, which is a preschool show for CBC. I do a lot of work with the Directors Guild of Canada in their Ontario section. And so I did some work for the new Brandon Cronenberg film, Infinity Pool, and just, yeah, that kind of stuff. A lot of focus on Canadian film and television advertising.
That's awesome. It's very interdisciplinary. It sounds like it's not just film focused. You're putting in marketing and strategy, a lot of businesses in there too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting field, right? Like, I think what's important to remember for a lot of folks that are interested in this career path, like there's different streams, there's different avenues, and you'll learn that. And it's important to like determine what you kind of want to do. You can go a more traditional union route and like work on big movies and televisions and become television shows and become like a union member, which is, great, high paying, almost blue collar, a lot of those jobs, which is awesome. Like you're down in the dirt and building sets and doing things that way. I think a lot of our industry is built on brand. So getting into like marketing, I always had a knack for like building things, building businesses and being interested in that. And a lot of producers, that's the kind of hat you have to wear, creativity with the business mindset as well. So that's kind of my path that I felt that was always strong for me. And you bring your creativity through the ideas you're pitching and the problems that you have to solve. I think the problems are creatively solved in a lot of these instances. So that's kind of it helps in that way. If you're like, oh, I'm very artistic as a person, I want to achieve things in that space. And it doesn't help to make money doing it at the same time, right? So you can kind of blend both those worlds because film and video and things like that are really kind of a balance between art and commerce. It's that it's an art form that's very much, those things are tied. So if you're interested in that, that's why film's an interesting area to go down.
That sounds awesome. So, and this is a good segue into, I guess, students coming into university, wanting to pursue film studies. What are the skills that people need to have to be successful in your industry and role, in your opinion?
Yeah. I think if you talk to any 5 people, it would be different. But if I'm trying to be inclusive to what I see is the traits that we look for most, I hire a lot of people. So I can just speak to who I hire and what I like in them. I like the ability to think outside the box, right? So again, that goes back to that creativity, but coming to an idea or a problem uh, in an unorthodox or outside the box way. It's very easy to like kind of
That
just
sounds
conform to whatever the trend is of the day and just kind of go with it. But I'm looking for people that think outside the box. And that's great for film because all the best filmmakers ever, all of the best people in that space have been people that have been trendsetters themselves, that have been unorthodox, have been like outcasts or the black sheep, and they're coming in and like really offering their voice up. I'm also looking for people that are adaptive. I think this industry and what is good, even as a student, is coming into a situation, assessing all of the components of what you're doing and like adapting to it and, using your strengths, but also understanding your weaknesses and where you can get better, right? And being adaptive to any situation you throw yourself in. If you are looking to succeed in life, I think it's pretty universal. Like if you can take a situation at face value and like try to adapt and fit in or know exactly when to offer an outside opinion or when to pivot, like you're going to be successful. So I'll say those two. Tegan probably has a few others here.
Yeah, I think the number one thing that sort of comes to mind is to be someone who's always sort of learning and trying to expand their skills because we've only been in the industry for 10 years ish,
Yep.
and it's already changed dramatically the landscape of, like if I started as a video editor and it was in traditional advertising for TV commercials, and even that space has changed. So I think you have to be the type of person who, if there's an up and coming social platform like TikTok, you're like, I'm going to make a video and see what happens. Like, I'm going to figure out how to edit in this app. And I think you have to be that kind of person. I also think to study film, you have to really like film. Like when we're in first year, there were quite a few people who I think took the course thinking that it would be an easy course. And it is easy in some ways, but at the same time, it is like you watch a lot of films. So if you're not ready to watch like 6 hours worth of black and white films in one day, like
And analyze them.
yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean?
You have to love it.
It's not Iron Man all the time. It's
Yeah.
like some film that's in Russian, that's in black and white, and it's a political statement about communism. Like, and it's 4 hours long. You really have to love it
Yeah.
if you want to be in
So
this program.
if you do love it, it will seem easy and will seem great.
Yeah.
But if you don't, it's going to be bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
That sounds cool. And I think you're right. The adaptability and the learning portion of it really seems like, I guess in any industry really, but for sure in something like media where things are constantly changing, even because within 2-3 weeks, different fads and trends coming in.
Exactly.
So, and I guess this is the second last question that we have. If you could go back to when you were applying to university, what advice would you give yourselves as, I guess, first year and into university advice?
For me, if I was to go back and change anything, I felt like I had a great experience, first year. And if we're talking solely about the curriculum, I think, outside of just like what you're studying, it's always hard to like come to a new place and oftentimes meet new people and live a different experience. So that's its own challenge. But particularly when it came to like my program and studying film, I think I would have put myself out there and started to be a little bit more creative earlier and tried to find more people. One thing I always felt that I didn't do enough of is like I was scared to like fail, and by fail I mean like make something or write something or do something and it not be good enough. I was very self-critical, so I think it was just about kind of doing things, and if they suck, that's fine, but you're like learning, and it's the perfect environment. School, that is the perfect environment to try things and fail because there's always kind of like a safety rail there. So it's a good space, and others are learning too, so you're not alone in that. So that's what I would have done probably.
Yeah, I was thinking something similar where I think I wish that I had been more creative earlier. Like I was from a very small town. We didn't have like film courses or anything in our high school, which once I got to Brock, I realized other students there had. And so I wish that I had experimented more with my filmmaking throughout high school. Like I did little stuff here and there, but I wish I had sort of had those skills so that I would have had more confidence, I guess, going into first year.
Yeah. Get involved too. I want to say that I get involved. Like,
Yeah.
first year, I felt like, oh, maybe I'll wait. Like, there's Brock TV, there's stuff that you're doing, like with podcasts, like getting involved in student union, getting involved in different clubs, starting your own club. Like, there are various different things, and it's the perfect place to do it. And, I did get involved. I started writing for the Brock Press and stuff in my third year. But it's like, maybe I should have done that earlier, because I would have made more friends. I would have gained more experiences if I had done it earlier, right? So I think get involved. There's plenty of opportunity. And I think it's the perfect time to experiment and try things.
No, 100%. I can agree with you on that. You beat me to it. I only started getting myself involved in my 5th year, and I'm about to graduate now. So I started really late, but it's okay. Yeah, I guess you start somewhere. Last but not least, one final question. What's your favorite film of 2022, and what movie are you most looking forward to this year, 2023?
Ooh. Wow.
Oh, gosh.
Favorite film of 2022?
I'm curious to hear what your answer is.
Yeah, that's a tough
publicly.
one. I have a few, but I'll go with Damien Chazelle's Babylon. Damien Chazelle previously did Whiplash which is about drumming, which is awesome, and La La Land, which is one of my favorite films. Babylon is a crazy 3-hour
That sounds
nuts film. It's everything kind of culminating in his career, and it features great actors like Margot Robbie and Brad Pitt, and it's about old Hollywood. But it's in parts a tough watch, but it's a love letter to film in a lot of ways. So that was my favorite movie. And for 2023, what I'm looking forward to, I don't know what's coming out in 2023.
I think I'm looking forward to Barbie.
Barbie. Wow.
It looks amazing. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's my answer. For 2022, though, I think I'm going to say my favorite film is Elvis, which might be controversial, but I really loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Barbie should be an interesting one, because it seems like it's going to subvert expectation of what people expect a movie about Barbie to be. So yeah, look out for Barbie.
The same weekend as Oppenheimer as well. So it'll be a big weekend for theaters. Yeah.
The trailers for both those movies look really nice, so that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a colleague who I think watched Elvis at least 3 or 4 times in theaters.
Yeah.
Maybe even more. Really loved the movie. So I unfortunately haven't watched it yet, but that is on my list. So maybe one day.
Yeah. Check it out.
Yeah. But thank you, Tyrell and Teagan, so much for being on the podcast today. I think we had a great conversation about your experiences with film studies, good advice for first-year students coming in, or I guess students in high school right now coming in, wanting to come into the industry. So thank you so much, and hopefully we shall see you again one day.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. It was a pleasure. We love talking about our experience and hopefully helping people. So thank you again for letting us come on.
All right, perfect. And for all the listeners, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. If you have any questions, you can contact us at brocku.ca/discover/contact.